order. In compliance with the Open Meeting Act, Nebraska Revised Statute 84-1407, a current copy of this act is posted on the wall in this meeting room. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Bulkley.
Here.
Augustine Schulte.
Here.
Barr.
Here.
Hemer.
Here.
Jablonski.
Here.
Kreshaw. Lohr.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
Schilling.
Here.
Mayor Bulkley, the roll has been called.
Thank you. Mrs. Council President.
Our Father, thank you for the opportunity to serve our fellow citizens. Please give us your wisdom and guidance to make the proper decisions entrusted to this governmental body. Guide our conduct to show respect, honor, and courtesy to each other, as well as to all our citizens. Amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. If at any time during our meeting this evening anyone would like to come up and speak to any item on our agenda, we'd ask that you please come forward. We'd ask you give your name and address, and we'd ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Item 4, consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a City Council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from consent status and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Item 4A, minutes of the August 15th, 2022 City Council meeting. Item 4B, minutes of the August 29th, 2022 Civil Service Commission meeting certifying police officer candidates Connor Dush, George Homer, and Aaron Peterson. Item 4C, reappointment of Scarlett Johnson and Robert Hausman to the Library Board for 4-year terms. Item 4D, resolution number R22-108, authorizing payment of various improvement projects. And item 4E, payroll and bills on file. Mr. Mayor and Council, is there anything you would like removed from consent status?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the items on the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion approved. Brings us up to public hearings.
Item 7A, public hearing, application of Gottberg Auto Company LLC doing business as Gottberg Brew Pub and Dusters Restaurant for retail Class C and L liquor license at 2804 13th Street.
Is there anyone here this evening to speak against this public hearing? Anyone here to speak for this public hearing? You're welcome to if you'd like. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the public hearing be closed. I'm sorry.
Quick question. Dusters has a liquor license now, do they not? How does this liquor license differ from what they have?
This is a special use. They're taking it out into their parking lot? No?
Come forward,
Well, then
please.
you better come forward. That's right.
No, I have taken over
Name and
Dusters.
address, please.
My name is Marilee Hull, and I have taken over Dusters from my father. I am the owner of Dusters now, and the liquor license he had applied for. So now I have to apply for it in my name. So it's the same license, it's just now I'm the person that's responsible for it.
Awesome. Sorry.
The licensed premises are not increasing?
No, it's all the
They-
same. Yeah, it's the same
Change in-
brewer's license. the
Change in
same-
ownership. All right.
Change in ownership,
Thank
you have
you.
to get a whole new license.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. Sorry I was wrong on that.
We were originally going to do that, but we didn't have the time because I couldn't have a temporary license and get a special permit.
Gotcha. So that's half right.
So you were half right.
All right, thank you.
So now we're moving the event indoors if anybody wants to attend. It's an Oktoberfest party on September 24th. We are doing special Oktoberfest meal.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yes. We have a motion and a second,
Do we get a second?
or did we get a second?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
we
you.
have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay.
Maybe. Maybe not.
The motion is to close the public
Public
hearing,
hearing,
is that
yes.
correct? All right.
There we go.
There we go. This is not a tough one.
Motion passes.
Item 7A1, application of Gotbird Brew Pub and Dusters Restaurant for Merrily Hall as a manager in conjunction with the liquor license.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the application of Gottberg Brew Pub and Dusters Restaurant for Merrily Hall as manager be approved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 7B, public hearing, consider objections to the creation of Street Improvement District Number 188, 23rd Street, Shady Lake Road from 54th Avenue to West Corporate Limits, and Street Improvement District Number 189, 48th Avenue from 23rd Street to south of Bradshaw Park's entrance.
Is there anyone here this evening to speak against this public hearing? Please come forward.
I guess I can go first. My name's Aaron Limser, live 4729 Ernst Street. I think I've talked to most of you guys on the phone already, so you probably know my thoughts, but I guess I'll just say it here. So, long story short, I think it's pretty ridiculous that a handful of houses are being assessed a significant amount of money for a road that we did not deteriorate. It's not a gravel road, it's a paved road. There's a sidewalk on our side anyways. The developers to the west are the ones that are gonna get most of the benefit of this. So I think most here that are probably gonna speak behind me would agree that we do not feel it's fair for a handful of houses that, that road gets used by Bradshaw Park, UNI Sanitation, obviously they're gonna pay their share, I'm sure, but it's heavy traffic that's not caused by us. I guess that's my 2 cents. Another issue that I talked to Rick about, it's already shown its head with the 23rd Street part, and it's going to get worse with 48th Avenue. That's the combination of the road construction and the trains. When that happens, we're on an island. It's a safety issue, a big one. When those trains park and the construction is there, what if there's a fire? What if there's a robbery? Somebody gets murdered? I mean, nobody can get to us. We're on an island. We have one way in and out, and this construction's a major problem with that as well. So I guess I'll end it there. If anybody has anything else to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, please come forward.
I'm Melissa Cerny, and I live on the corner of 48th Avenue and 19th Street. And I've lived there since 1995, and I have a preschool there. My bill was $25,112.43. I'm a single mother to 4 children. I've been teaching for over 20 years. I have a second job to already. I don't know how I will pay for this. I don't think it's fair. My property taxes are $6,840 a year, and I don't feel like this is fair for just 2 houses in to pay for this. Another issue, what he talked about, how we're on an island. So all my preschoolers this week, I called the police because we had kids climbing the train. They were stuck because they're doing construction on Shady Lake Road. They had no way to get to my place, and this would make it even more difficult as they did all the construction. My boy was tardy for school 5 times just from this construction from Shady Lake Road, because when the train stops, it's 20 minutes. The only way across is by 19th Street. So, but that's my issue. So I just feel like it's a financial burden. And if it passes, I will have to sell my place, which is pretty sad. So, thank you.
Next, please.
Hello, I'm Sherry Van Dyke. I live at 1859 49th Avenue. I'm quite sure that Mayor Bulkley shared a letter that I had sent to you and Mr. Schilling. Thank you for that. You answered most of my questions from the email that I had sent you. I agree with what the folks before me have said, of course. But I do have one other question that has not been answered, and I know you're not going to answer questions right now, but I would like to know the answer at some point, and that is there are probably 50 houses that have one entrance or 2 entrances and exits, but they all come out to that same place. In my neighborhood, because I live on the other side of 48th, I'm the only one in a home that is being assessed. I want to know how you choose those people that you're going to assess this bill to. So that's my first question. Because I don't use that exit and entrance any more than those other people do just because I live close to it. And there's no other way in and out of my neighborhood. The other question that I would have is one of the answers that I got from Mayor Bulkley was that we are being assessed 20% of the bill for this project, which means that the city or other taxpayers are paying the 80%. Well, with that equation, does that mean I get to pay twice? Because I'm in the 80%, right? And I'm also in the 20%. So that would be another question that I would the answer I'd find interesting. I think that I also feel very disappointed that we would be assessed these kinds of things based on what we all pay in property tax. And I don't typically complain about that because I work for Columbus Public Schools and I get it. But roads and stuff like that, I just don't get that. Like why we have to have that. And as I told Mayor Bulkley and you guys saw, I don't care if there's curbing on that street and all that, and I know that that doesn't matter, but this isn't something that we have asked you to do. So that would be another thing that I would bring up. And I know that you're doing it the way that you've always done it. That does not make it right. So those are my comments. Thank you for listening, and I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you. Rick or Tara, do you want to address the process of the frontage road? I mean, just explain the process that does take place?
On the assessment part. So it's the city's policy and has been for a really long time to assess half a block back. But there's a limit in the distance of what a half a block is. And so those properties that are inside that half a block are the ones that are assessed. It does not go all the way half into that horseshoe type of, it doesn't go halfway back there. It's not that far because it maxes out on the distances. So it's a distance set. That's been our city policy for a very long time, how far you go back.
Okay. I mean, I understand what you're saying. It doesn't address your concern about just because we've done it, that's how we do it. But at this point, that's how we do it.
Well, Well, granted, but, you know, I think we're trying to treat everybody the same in all the districts that we have done. And so that's why, you know, that policy has been set, and that's why we keep the same policy if we're not doing it different for different groups.
Understand. Thank you.
Well, and Rick, I have a question though. While it's always done the same way, do we ever look at the dynamics of the neighborhood though? Because like they said, they are in a horseshoe, and everybody's going in and out on the same area. That's not the dynamics we have in every place where we're going to assess. And so when we're looking at, while we do it all the same, is it possible to look at and create another policy where we do actually look at a neighborhood and the dynamics of a neighborhood? I'm just throwing that question out. Is that something that we can do or consider?
You can. I think you need to be a little bit careful with that. State statutes requires things to be assessed equally.
Right.
And so that's why a lot of the cities have policies and such that they're kind of assessed equally. So, I mean, although you can maybe look at that in certain situations, I would kind of caution you that you don't once again want to maybe pick and choose one situation over the other that maybe in the future or in the past that have occurred.
Right. And I think what you said too about state statute is a good point, because sometimes while it's not fair, it's not always the city that's making the decision on how to do it. We have to still follow the way the state tells us that we need to follow state statutes.
Yeah, state statute has the street improvement districts well spelled out, and you could probably attest to that.
Can I ask another question?
You should.
So
Please
the
come
road-
up there. You have to come up though, please.
The road from Cubby's to the hospital, not a half block was assessed. They didn't pay at all, correct?
So the road.
But fair is fair, you just said, for everybody to keep it the same.
Right, that was done many years ago, and I wasn't here, but
No,
that
they
was.
just did it right now.
No, what I'm trying to
I'll
say is it started out as a road like yours, and then it was concrete paved and widened many years ago, and that was done by a street transportation program project, and I believe that was assessed back then. So what we were doing just this last year was fixing the bad areas, which end up being both of those lanes on that road. So you cannot assess somebody twice on something like that.
Assessed for this original road
No.
I don't believe that you were. We never found any information on
on the
that.
19th Street that I'm on, not the 48th Avenue. So I'm getting assessed for both sides?
Oh, it's, yeah, 48th Avenue would be separate from 19th Street in your case. Yeah, it's a separate,
So I get charged twice?
living on a corner that you would benefit from it, yes. Benefits are defined by state statute if you own property that benefits by those definitions.
So how will people get to my school if they work on 48th Avenue? If the train's blocked
So-
on 19th Street? 'Cause
Right.
It's blocked for 20 to 40 minutes the other day when I called the police.
Right, so we're going to, on the 40th Avenue segment you're talking about, not just on your road, but the Bradshaw Road there, we're gonna skip the intersections, do them half at a time to get across to the west side, and then a temporary road up to what will be completed 23rd Street.
So the train facility, where they assess, since all the train people come down, the work crew?
By statute, we can't assess, they're not in our own property on it, so we couldn't assess them for that. But I think that's part of the 80,
And all
20%
all
thing.
the visitors to Bradshaw, are they assessed?
They're not, but I think it's part of that future program money, the 80% cost of that.
Rick, what would this project cost if the neighbors decided they wanted streets and curbs and sidewalks? What would the cost be to them?
If they paid 100% of it?
They pay, I mean, if they came to us and said, hey, we really don't like the road and we didn't have any desire to put it in, what would it cost them roughly?
Per assessment, so like, we're not using.
The objection is, well, we don't really want this, we really don't want the sidewalks, we don't need a gutter, but let's just put the ball on the other side. If they would have come to us and said, we want this improvement to the street, what would it have cost them?
It'd be about 2.5 to 3 times the assessment that they have today if we did not participate with the federal funds
Not the
purchase
federal
program money.
project with it, okay, thank you.
Anyone else come forward to speak against this public hearing? All All right, anyone to speak for this public hearing? Entertain.
Mr. Mayor, I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 7B1, resolution number R22-109, directing the city to proceed with creation of street improvement district number 188. As a reminder, that's 23rd Street, Shady Lake Road, out to 54th Avenue. From
Mr.
54th Avenue to the west corporate limits, excuse me.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, I move resolution number R22-109 be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number R22-109. Any discussion?
I'm going to vote no on this. It seems like we are restricted on a lot of things because of state statute. And I think what I would like to see, if it's possible for us, is to go to the state and see if we can, and maybe this is far-fetched, but we're bound by a lot of things with state statute in the way we're doing things. And I guess I understand we have the same complaint a lot of times with different districts. And I guess I would like maybe us to pursue a little bit and say, hey, what if we have a situation like this particular situation? What kinds of alternatives do we have to cover this expense without burdening the residents and our taxpayers? Now, I don't know if that's possible, but
I can speak to that a little bit. The state has set parameters, and we can work at a minimum to those parameters. But the state, if we go forward with any kind of changes to the state statute, they would not be able to do anything to allow more latitude than they already have. So they would say, if I went to them, they would say, well, you have the latitude to do, the city of Columbus has the latitude to do whatever they want. The problem is, and Rick kind of alluded to it, is if you don't do these things uniformly, if we do this one different than the next one, different than the next one, we're opening the city up to a lot of liability interpretation of how we assess projects. That's really the issue. So if there is a solid reason or a criteria we can add to our assessment policy, then we should look at that. The city of Columbus should look at that. You know, like in this case, if the whole neighborhood is bound by that road or something like that, we can talk about that. And Rick and I don't have the latitude to do that. We don't, when this is getting created, we don't have the latitude to make that change without council action.
so if this doesn't pass tonight and we give you that permission to do that,
This is not the one they were referencing, though. This is 188.
Yeah.
This is a
is
different
the
one.
one
This is not the one that they're.
Going east and west, not north and south.
they're 189 though, is
Yes.
that correct? Okay. And that's not the one that you have an issue with, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, well then I'm good with this one, but then the other one unless,
Yeah, we can talk about the other
yep,
one
sounds
after
good.
this.
Okay, very good, thank you. I have no other discussion then.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 7B2, resolution number R22-110, redirect or directing the city to proceed with creation of street improvement district number 189. This is 48th Avenue from 23rd Street south to Bradshaw Park's entrance.
Mr. Mayor, I move resolution number R22-110 be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number R22-110. Any discussion?
So, Rick, for clarity,
Yeah, that's fine.
when Third Avenue was created with that SID, where everybody traveled to the golf course or to Centennial Park or Centennial School or Park, was that split at 80-20?
Yeah,
in the
there's an
same manner?
assessments to last surface transportation program projects, so it was assessed also according to these same guidelines.
I feel everybody's pain. I lived on Third Avenue. I sold my house before the road was done. And because that SID was created, I had to pay for it when I sold my house. So I understand where everybody, I mean, I feel your pain. I really do.
I guess my thought,
ma'am.
though, is still, this is a one-way way to get in and out with the trains. It's affecting the quality of life. It's affecting just not, I mean, like down on Third Avenue, yeah, I get that. And the same with, they had the same people said the same thing when they were building the middle school, and they were assessing all of that. But there were other routes that could be traveled during that construction. There were other routes that were available that didn't impede, or, you know, there's always an impediment. But when you're talking construction in a train and 20 minutes to already get in and out, I guess I just think this is a situation where we need to look and see if there's some kind of an allowance we can make because of the location and the way the streets and the neighborhoods are already designed. I guess that's my thought, so.
Any other comments or discussions? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second to proceed with the resolution R22-110, which would proceed with the creation of Street Improvement District 189. All those in favor signify by aye, those opposed nay. Motion passes. Brings us up to petitions. We have none. Report of council committees.
Item 10A, Committee of the Whole of September 6, 2022. Item 10A1, amend the proposed schedule of fees for rescue service to provide a fee for lift assist calls for private residents at a charge of $150 for
That's the agenda item. so it's
third
okay.
and subsequent calls per calendar year. The motion's different, though. You changed the motion.
You can read their recommended
Yep.
motion.
So the Committee of the Whole recommends approval to amend the proposed schedule of fees to provide $150 for all lift assist calls to private residents.
Mr. Mayor, I move this report be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this committee report. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye, those opposed nay. Motion passes.
Item 10A2, the pay plan. The Committee of the Whole recommends approval of the pay plan as presented.
Mr. Mayor, move this report be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this committee report. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye, those opposed nay. Motion passes.
Item 10A3, Capital Improvement Plan. The Committee of the Whole recommends approval of the Capital Improvement Plan as presented.
Mr. Mayor, I move that this committee report be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this committee report. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye, those opposed nay. Motion passes.
Item 10A4, the budget. The Committee of the Whole recommends approval of the budget as presented.
Mr. Mayor, I move that this committee report be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this committee report. Any discussion? Seeing none, I would just add before we vote that compliment staff on the effort and the time they put into developing a budget for fiscal year 22-23. I think the citizens can be happy with what they'll see coming forward, and again, thank them for their time and their efforts. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 10A5, Parks and Recreation Survey Results. No motion is necessary, but a presentation on the Park and Rec Survey results was presented. No recommendation was made.
All right, moves us on to new business this evening.
Item 13A, quote from Schmidt's Concrete Construction LLC in the amount of $28,654.65 for floor and hanger number 1315 at the airport.
Mr. Mayor, I move the quote from Schmidt's Concrete Construction LLC for floor and hanger number 1315 be accepted.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the Schmidt Concrete Construction for the hangar floor in hangar number 1315. Any discussion?
Is the amount within budget?
This is not a budgeted expense, but the airport has received ARPA funds and about $32,000 worth of ARPA funds. So the budget is in a surplus. So that's why we're proceeding with this.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye, those opposed nay. Motion passes.
Item 13B, comments from the mayor and city council members. In compliance with the Open Meetings Act, no discussion may be held on this item.
Any comments from council members this evening? I have nothing myself, so we'll move right on to resolutions.
Item 14A, resolution number R22-111, approving the second addendum to the fixed base operator agreement with Avcraft Incorporated to extend the term to December 31st, 2022. The Board of Airport Commissioners recommends approval.
Mr. Mayor, move the resolution number R22-111 be adopted. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution R22-111. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 14A1, request for proposals for fixed base operator services at the airport. The Board of Airport Commissioners recommends approval.
Mr. Mayor, I move staff be authorized to advertise requests for proposals for fixed-based operator services.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the request for RFPs for fixed-based operator service at the airport. Any discussion? I guess I'd have a couple of questions I'd like answered. Yes, sir.
Don't need. Go ahead.
Well, we're putting together an RFP that's asking for some things that I guess I'm just wanting some background on, some support. You know, we're asking for, I think you're asking for a lot of things that maybe are big in scope, but the things that stand out to me when I read what is being requested is a charter service, flight schools. So tell me about this in Columbus, let alone in other communities our size.
And they're, just for clarification, those are not requirements of the RFP. They're just a list of services that FBOs can provide. They're not a
Yes,
requirement.
that is correct.
Excuse me for
It
that.
is not required, but it is something that we would hope for in Columbus. We do not have a 141 flight school, and a 141 is different than Part 61. You can get funding for a 141, like students here. We have almost 2,000 students between the three high schools here, not to mention community college. We have an airport that would be perfect for a flight school. It's not busy. I came from Florida. The airports are busy. The planes are stacked up. They're trying to get out. It's something we put in there because then if a company has that availability, they can offer it to Columbus. The charter, the 135 charter, currently what we have at Columbus is farmed out to a company in Lincoln. So that goes to that company, not Columbus. And a 135 charter here, like a lot of businesses in Columbus couldn't afford a $20 million corporate jet or pilots and a hangar. So having that here gives them an opportunity to say, hey, we're gonna fly our executives to Florida for a 2-day golfing event. They have that availability, that capacity here at Columbus. So Any other questions?
What's the need for that?
The need
Yes.
for a 135? Well,
From our business standpoint in Columbus, Nebraska.
Can I speak, Erin?
Yes,
It's
please.
really not about that. It's about, really, the reason we're doing an RFP is because there's more than one interested party interested in providing fixed base operator services at the airport. And we weren't able to negotiate with both of them because they just weren't willing. One party wasn't really willing to negotiate with another one out there also negotiating. So an RFP levels the playing field. We put the RFP together, we say, these are the services FBOs can provide. Anybody who's interested, what can you provide? And that's what a proposal does, right? It levels the playing field. Everybody has the exact same opportunity to say what they can provide, what experience they have, references, all those things. So that's really why we're doing it. We're not requiring anything of an FBO other than fuel, off-hour service, that sort of thing. That's our minimum requirement.
Tara, if I may. So the second party that comes in promises the world that they can offer these things.
They won't.
It doesn't mean they have to though, right?
Right, and they won't offer the world. They know, they may say there's potential to grow a charter service, or there's potential to grow a flight school. But
we've got charter people. They're flying. These are coming from outside, coming in. It is not, and these are even company-owned jets that are coming in.
Of course, yeah.
And it's not just that, it's even about simple things like fuel. We're high on fuel costs. We have big businesses that do own aircraft here in Columbus, and they don't buy fuel here. They're housed here, but they don't buy fuel here. So there are some issues that we need to overcome. And that's, this should help us move forward from that.
And if I could speak to what Tara said too, the RFP, as a city manager, that contract for a bid requires 3 minimum, right? And it has to be approved. And that's fair practice. It's offering it out there as fair practice to select one of those, generally the lowest, that can do the best work in a timely manner. I don't know that this airport has ever done an RFP for an FBO, but I would suggest that we require it, whoever takes over, every 5 years, because then that keeps them competitive and not relaxed saying, well, they're just going to sign another 5 years.
Don't we currently
fair
do
point.
3 years with an option?
The last contract was executed in 2016. It was 3 years with 3 one-year extensions. So it was actually 6 years total that we had our last FBO.
A potential though for those 3 additional years.
Yeah, and really, and I understand that as an FBO, you need a 3 to 5 year contract because depending on your size and your, I guess, business bottom line, you may need to work with a bank, a lender to operate your business day to day. So what we're looking at is a 3 to 5 year contract. And I would agree with Aaron. Next time hopefully we can get a 5 year contract that is good, and we can, in 5 years when that's up, do another RFP.
Aaron, I know you haven't been here for over a year.
4 months.
4 months?
Yes, sir.
Have you had any calls for a charter in 4 months?
We get quite a few calls, but they're all directed to
Go to
the
fixed base
aircraft.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the location of my office is not at the FBO, so I
Correct.
don't get to see the pilots, meet the pilots. It's kind of weird, but
But you have had some calls since you've been here that you forwarded?
well, I've had calls that I forwarded, and when I spoke to Mr. Harbor, he's taken quite a few calls as well for that. And again, they had an agreement where the company said, we'll eat the flight over to Columbus for the contract, but again, that goes to them, not
Right.
Columbus. So.
All right, any other discussion?
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hello. My name's Sam Taylor. One thing I just wanted to make sure the council kind of focuses on is I think what we're doing here is, as a citizen, we would just want to go out and see if there's better options out there or what the options are. I don't think we really need to focus on a 135 or 141 or any of those real numbers, because ultimately it doesn't matter. We're going to put the bid out, we'll see who has the best option, and then as a community we can select that. So I think maybe not getting in the weeds and getting to the things that maybe really may or may not happen, but as a member of the community, I would like to see what's available out there. It's no different than if you're going to go get fill up your vehicle with gas down the street. Are you going to go to one that has coffee, or are you going to go to one that doesn't have coffee? I mean, you have choices, you have options, right? So I think, again, just focusing on the fact that really all this is trying to do is just see what's available and what's out there. We're not picking something right now, that's all.
I understand, but to stay out of the weeds, you shouldn't have the weeds put in then, because all the information that came forth talking about this, talked about charters, talked about flight schools, talked about those things. So it kind of drives your thought process.
Sure.
So it's hard to stay out of the weeds if the weeds are put into what you're working with.
So, some of those certificates are very difficult to get. If you have a 135 certificate, it's very difficult to get from the FAA. If you have a 141 flight school certificate, it's very difficult to get from the FAA. So I think what we're saying is if there's operators out there that have those certificates, they could bring them in and continue operation as a fixed base operator, but then also expand those capabilities and those opportunities. So without those certificates, getting those are very difficult. Not that it's impossible, but again, I'm not saying that, focus on the high picture, the big picture is what I'm saying. The weeds, again, just because somebody says, hey, 135, 141, that's great. That doesn't mean the fixed base operator that we're looking for is going to come in and do that. I just want to see what's available and what's out there. Because these people who have these options and those capabilities might want to come to Columbus. We don't know. But
They
without
don't necessarily
opening it up.
need a different FBO to be a Part 135. We
No.
had a 135 here.
Yeah.
He moved away and sold his helicopter,
Yeah.
but he operated out of his hangar
Right.
with a Part 135.
But again, I think, Terry, we're not making that a requirement, is that right?
No.
Right. So again, all I'm saying is all we're trying to do with this is just to see what's available, what's out there. That's all, right? We're not trying to pick a charter outfit here. I think that's probably for a different discussion.
Any other comments? Thank you.
Could I
Thank
get
you for
your
your comments.
Sir, she needed your name again, please.
Your address.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You want to say it here?
Said Sam Taylor?
Yep.
Okay.
And 6752 56th Avenue Place.
Say that again.
6752
Okay.
56th
Okay.
Avenue Place.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else speak this evening? All right. We have a motion and a second to approve a RFP for fixed-based operator service at the airport. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 14B, resolution number R22-112, approving the loan agreement with Columbus Area Child Care in the amount of $225,000 for assistance in purchasing real property to be used as a child care daycare facility using economic development plan funds as recommended by the Citizens Advisory Review Committee.
Mr. Mayor, I move that resolution number R22-112 be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution R22-112. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Okay, is anybody here to talk to?
Dawson?
Yes, sir.
What are you gonna do about workforce?
So part of this project is that it's a public-private philanthropic partnership. So working with the city on LB 840 funds, working with private industry, we've received over $70,000 a year in commitments from private industry to help subsidize and pay childcare employees in that $14 to $15 an hour range. The idea is that the people that are leaving childcare right now because of low wages, that we can retain them.
So you believe the loss of employees at the last facility was because of wages?
I would say that's a very fair assessment.
Is it an assessment, or are you knowledgeable to that fact?
Knowledgeable. It was closer in the $12-ish range.
Okay.
And that's where we feel comfortable in that $14 to $15. And talking with some of those employees that would help them stay in there.
Some of the daycare, providers that I've visited with, they just can't find the help the kind of help you need to have to run a daycare. I don't know if you pay them $30 an hour, you're going to have anything better, but I guess that would be my bigger concern than trying to keep the thing afloat. But that's a personal opinion. But I think we're all up against this now with workforce, and I don't think we have it. And you know, we're talking about casino that's going to be bringing in 300 jobs. I mean, this thing's going to be completely depleted. But I admire you for trying it, but I just don't know.
And I agree with you completely, Councilman Jablonski. And you know, as many of you know, we have 2,300 open jobs in Columbus right now. But with childcare, at a minimum, one childcare employee keeps 4 people employed in the workforce. Because right now we have over 600 kids inside of Columbus and over 1,000 in Platte County that have both parents working and don't have a licensed childcare spot for them. And so that will go up. Actually, that did go up now that the center has shut down, that we're over 700. And that's where if we can keep employees in the childcare center, we can keep parents employed throughout the community.
Austin, have you thought about the impact when Kramer School opens?
Yes, and so when Kramer opens, they'll have about 120 spots. Our big thing is, you know, I mentioned that 600 kid spot, and Kramer puts a nice dent into that. And I know that CPS is looking at, you know, their North 3rd Avenue property that they might look at having another center attached to. But really, this project was to stop the bleeding right here, right now. And a lot of the industry saw that, but they also saw, how do we take this Columbus area childcare nonprofit and help all the childcare centers in Columbus? And, you know, we have sat down with Dr. Lavaholtz and Nicole Anderson with the CPS Foundation and talked with them. And, you know, they're hoping to be open by about summer next year. So we're working with them, and we're working with the hospitals, the childcare center, the St. Bonaventure's preschool. So really trying to bring all these people in, United Way as well. But we are well aware of CPS and Kramer, so we want it. We want as many spots as we can find, honestly, because, you know, as we're making great strides on housing, you can build 100 houses, but if you don't have childcare, you're only bringing 100 employees to town, not 200.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion?
Thanks,
I would
all.
echo what you said. Over the years, we've talked about housing, and it's now kind of an even keel between housing, daycare. And any discussion about how our community is going to grow and continue to move forward, we've got to have those two items and work on them and continue to try to address them.
Yeah,
So,
and I will say, just to address, you know, the chamber is supporting Columbus Area Childcare. It's a separate board, separate nonprofit, separate tax status, tax exemption ID. And really, you know, the mayor spoke at our April planning session, really voiced that, you know, we really need to keep an eye on childcare. And I thought it'd be one of those things that you work with United Way and say you checked this box, and you had that meeting and you had that discussion. When we were approached by the former center operators that they were trying to buy the building, and tried to help them with that process, and then tried to help them rent the building, and just working through, it was never our intention to end up with this situation. But that space could have very easily been converted to a retail space with where it is. And we just knew that this was what we had to do. I by no means wanted to be involved with the child care center.
I do think you have a good point, though. I guess I know a teacher in the parochial school system who they couldn't find childcare, and so one of the people in the marriage, the wife, had to choose to quit working for the year, and so now they are one employed, one worker person, and I know they're feeling a little anxious about how they're going to cover expenses, but it was because they couldn't find childcare, and so there is definitely a need.
Yeah, we officially announced it this morning this afternoon, and we already have over a dozen people in the 2 hours that have already reached out saying, "Hey, can we get on the wait list?" And it's scary.
Yeah, there's a high demand for it. So,
all right,
thank you.
we have a motion.
I was just saying thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Best of luck to you.
Item 14C, resolution number R22-113, approving the agreement with NBC Capital LLC doing business as Ramada Inn for trail and sidewalk improvements in southeast corner of their parking lot.
Mr. Mayor, I request to abstain from agenda items 14C and 14C1 because I am a partner of NBC Capital LLC and therefore have a conflict of interest.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the adoption of resolution number R22.
Wait a minute, John, we gotta get a
Gotta
second.
wait.
We
Gotta-
gotta get a second on his.
Good, a second.
Got a second?
That's not a motion, it's a request.
We need a motion.
Oh, a motion, okay. I'm sorry about
I would like to make a motion to allow Councilmember Jablonski to abstain from voting on this agenda item.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
This and 14C1.
Yes.
I just amend that.
14C, okay, yes, on
We have a
these,
motion-
on
mo-
these agenda items.
A
Can I
motion
say
and a
that?
second for Councilman Jablonski to abstain from 14C and 14C1. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Oh, John.
Now, 14C.
Now, Mr. Mayor, I move for the adoption of resolution number R22-113.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve resolution number R22-113. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Item 14C1, quote from Gearing Construction and Ready Mix Incorporated in the amount of $16,040 for the trail sidewalk improvements.
Don't everybody jump at once.
Mr. Mayor, I move the quote from Garen Construction and Ready Mix Incorporated for trail sidewalk improvements be accepted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the quote from Gearing Construction and Ready Mix for the sidewalk trail improvements. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Brings us up to ordinances on the first reading.
Item 15A, ordinance number 22-19, amending the city code by enacting chapter 15 of title 15 to impose an occupation tax on lodging. This is a first reading. No motion is necessary. Any discussion?
Any discussion?
Do you have a percentage in there? Or?
4.
4? Okay, thank you.
And what I know it's probably kind of a guess, but what would you anticipate the revenue that this would generate?
It's a pretty good guess because Platte County Visitors Bureau has 4% and they generated last year $360,000 about. So between, and I believe 100% of the those who remit that are within the city of Columbus. So it will be around that amount. And it will be used for park and recreations, facility maintenance and operation, and it's not attached.
Yeah, and you said or title 15 is title 11.
Oh, title 11, sorry. 11.
Chapter 115.
Chapter 115, title 11. Any other discussion? Right.
Seeing none, there's no vote tonight?
No.
That would then bring us up to adjournment. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks.
Oh, there you go.